introduce myself and get started. I know many of you in the room. I'm Mason Jones. I teach ag at Edmond Public Schools. It's a 3-teacher program, and it's my 10th year I'm entering into, I guess. July 1 starts year 10. I love teaching ag. Something that, I talk about it. It's something I try to get better at each and every year. And some of the things I'm talking about today, I think, are still not fully formed. These are ideas. And I think of this conference, these 2 days, kind of started, and Mr. Lastly was at the conference we first went to at OSU. It's like maybe 15, 20 teachers. You were supposed to come to the conference if you had a 15-minute idea to share. So this is kind of formed from that. And Mr. Taylor and others that have been with me real recently know that I haven't been able to teach this as much as I want to, but it's something that's a work in progress. But I think about where I'm at in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I'm sure many of you have also said it or heard somebody say, well, they never taught me this in school, or whatever. And you can think of a long list of things that just fall through the cracks of life skills. Maybe, you have a flat tire. That's one of the most common ones people think of. And just like, you better know how to, if you got a disabled car on the side of the road, you better know how to fix a flat so that you can get back on the road. It's a safety thing. And so, who's supposed to teach that if a parent isn't going to do it? And I'm not saying that it's the only thing we should teach, but I think in middle school curriculum, I'll go to the next slide, just kind of talk about the purpose of what this whole idea is about. You talk about adulting 101, life skills 101, just curriculum to teach middle school students. And it can be taught to more than just middle school students, but it's something that I think is really relevant to hit them at that time, because most of the lessons are engaging. They're getting out of their chairs, getting to where they're doing something tactile, hands-on, if you will, and experiencing that. And so as I came back from graduate school at OSU, I thought back of like how I first initially taught the 8th grade Ag Explorations curriculum. And to be honest, for me, my biggest fault is that I taught Ag 1 to the 8th graders too much. And maybe you've fallen in that trap a little bit too, because you want to teach about FFA in the first year and you want to do some things, you still want to talk about animal science. So how do I differentiate, or how do I try and make something for middle school students just for them that's special, that they can really look forward to? And then they're telling their friends, hey, we did this today. We went outside and we changed flat tire, did whatever, did some carpentry work, did some plumbing work, whatever the case may be, just things that they need to know how to do as an adult. And so I was kind of in a rut trying to think of things to do differently. And that's something that I thought, well, what is an Edmond student? And wherever you teach, you think about that question too. And that's the cool thing and the liberty of where we're at and what we teach is we really have a lot of choice in meeting the needs of our community. So what I teach at Edmond is not going to be relevant in, Copan necessarily. And so sometimes it will be, but I thought about, Edmond student probably doesn't need to know what a purebred Chianina bull looks like. I don't know very many times in their life that they're going to need to know that. And we've shown that picture on the slide every single year, And I'm not saying don't teach it, but some people, when I was a graduate student, they'd make their maps for their curriculum, and we're going to spend a week talking about breeds of cattle. I'm like, come on. It's like, Edmond students don't need that. And so I'm speaking for myself here, and wherever you're at is different, but I just think about, what do my students really need to know? And I don't think that this is a curriculum that can take the place of everything you do. It's more of a supplement to the agriculture curriculum that we have in place, and a way to kind of just add to what we offer. And there's a lot of approaches that I've used, and I think all of them are adaptable and work well for it. But what I've probably done most often is on a Friday, maybe I just wrapped up a unit and I don't want to start a new unit on a Friday. Well, it's a perfect one-day mini lesson to go outside and take part in some sort of a life skill, or even stay inside if it's something that relates to writing a handwritten thank you note and addressing an envelope, and doing that properly so that somebody, because as we know, anytime you've had students have to send a letter, because inevitably they're going to have to for invitations to some event that you're hosting, well, that they don't know how to address an envelope. And we always get back and shocked. I'm like, well, why would they know that? they won't ever have to send letters anymore. And so that when it comes time that they do, it's a simple skill, but that's a way to get you something quickly on a Friday where, all right, I want y'all to do this and we're going to actually practice this. It's as simple as it is. And so this idea is something you've probably already been teaching a lot of these things anyway. And so I'm just putting wheels on it, kind of giving an idea as to how it could be approached. So you could do a semester-long series if you're in a school district that has like trimester kind of things where it's like 8 weeks. Well, maybe you could do this for about 8 weeks and you could really pack in a lot of cool information and still relate it to agriculture. I think that's always important because there's plenty of agriculture in the context of that we can teach that are going to help them in life. But it could be a single unit of like life skills. We're just going to have a life skills unit, and however long that takes, it may take a week or 2 weeks, just going through a series of what you deem to be the important skills that an adult ought to have. Or for me, the thing that I typically do is use it to either fill open days or kind of build a routine. And that's hard as an ag teacher to consistently. I've tried to do theme days, as many of you others probably have, Motivation Monday or Fun Friday or something like that. But this is always intended for me to be like a Friday activity, because 8th grade students who I'm speaking about, but it could be Ag 1, it could be older, they don't want to sit in a chair all hour long and listen to a lecture. You know that. Everybody knows that. And on a Friday especially, there's just a different feel that day. And as we know, we've been teaching long enough to know that on a Friday, they're like, before you can even get started with it, can we go outside today? You know, what are we doing? And if you can meet them right there and say, yeah, matter of fact, I got a plan. We're going to go outside and we're going to do this. That's when there's like, yes, all right? And so, and this stuff I think is really adaptable. And I'm telling you this is ideas, and I have some resources to share. And I will say that this PowerPoint is also going to be shared with you when you scan the QR code at the end for those that are note-taking. I have a Google Drive folder that has this in it and a list of what I found is like, these are all life skills, and some of them are going to be like, nah, I wouldn't do that. Some are like, oh, I never thought of that. And I hope as we wrap up, y'all will be able to add to that list, because I'm self-serving here. I need ideas too, right? And so that's something I know everybody's got something that they've experienced or thought of. It's like, I can't believe, maybe it's their own son or daughter, like, I can't believe you don't know how to do that. You know, who's supposed to teach that? Well, you know, and we're able to fill that gap sometimes. And so another couple great things about this, authentic assessment. You know, what's great about teaching power and technology is you get to assess them right there. And when they're showing you their weld or whatever it is that they did, and they're excited to come get tested and assessed, as opposed to giving a paper test where it's like, all right, we have to get a grade for this test. You know, it's authentic assessment is they're performing and they want to know how well they did. So even if it's an 8th grader putting like something together like a birdhouse, which we did and it took forever, because you wouldn't believe how long it takes Edmond students to, you know, learn how to use a hammer and nails. And I'm not the best either. So it's like the blind leading the blind and some of that kind of stuff. But like, they want to know how their birdhouse looked. They want that authentic assessment, and it's real and it's right there. And so that's kind of fun. And so you can also lead to a lot of group work. Make teams as much as you can, or small groups, pairs, partners, whatever. And so like I say, there's a lot of flexibility to teaching these kind of things, but my main idea to really introduce this to you is that we need to be teaching life skills. I think we're a part of the career tech umbrella, and I think that maybe if students choose us over facts, well, there's even some housekeeping things we can teach. And I don't mean just that that's all facts is, but family and consumer science lessons that maybe they aren't going to get since they elected Ag Ed, but students need to know about safe food handling, right? And I think that absolutely relates to agriculture. It's definitely in there. And so cooking something, I put on the list, you're going to laugh, but it's like how to cook an egg 5 different ways or something like that. He's like, you need to know how to fend for yourself whenever you go off to college, and you know, you can't just go to McDonald's every single day. Some little things like that. So it's like healthy choices, things like that. And I'm not saying that you're going to say, well, teach that ag, but yeah, for one day out of a week, every once in a while, sure. Because if a kid doesn't hear that, maybe they'll never hear it. So that's why I think some of this stuff's interesting. But going forward, how does it look? You know, I think you can do it a lot of different ways, but here's kind of just examples of ways in which we've done that have worked and maybe have not worked. And so I just try to make a list, and this is a fluid list. It's always changing. I look at some things, I'm like, I tried teaching that, and I just don't think it was really, maybe it's an important skill, but it wasn't really, you know, relevant to that group, or didn't really go well as a lesson. And so things change. I'll take and add to my list all the time. And I don't have a full blown lesson plan for every single life skill. Sometimes, you're going to look at it and you're say, well, this is a simulation demonstration lesson. I don't need to make a full lesson plan for this. I just need to know the instructions for myself so that I can teach students that. And then again, to be reminded, this is not to be turned into teaching methods class. Some of y'all, it's not been that long since you had to do that, but simulation demonstration, things that are good things to do with students is to actually have them learn it by steps. If they know that there's 5 steps to a process, learning how to tie a tie or something like that, then it makes it to where they can really see that and accomplish it a little bit easier, as opposed to, all right, watch me tie this tie. All right, your turn. It's like step 1, put this over this, right? And so try to list steps of any new skill, because again, this is a performance. And then they can teach each other that. So you have them with a list of steps teaching each other. I think that's just like I talk about, simulating and demonstrating real things. Whenever they learn how to do that the right way, doing it safely, doing whatever it is that they're doing, then that's something I think improves the retention of how to do it as well. And so I'm just kind of repeating things that you learn as an undergrad. But you can introduce this and demonstrate to students, like I said, weekly theme, single unit. I would love to say that I've been perfect and we've had a weekly one. I mean, anybody that student taught me said, no, that just doesn't happen. Life happens. You can't follow through every time, but I want to incorporate this more. And I was doing it pretty consistently before COVID and then have not gotten back into that routine. And that's something that this year and kind of thinking about these things, I think will hopefully get better. But I like the idea also, and I haven't used this very well and it needs to be changed, but it's an idea I want y'all to consider too, because choice boards or completion chart, I think is another really cool idea of way to approach this. Okay, if you want to have a lesson for a day when you're gone or substitute, I mean, there's obviously caveats to that. Some things students can't just take off and do if they're all split up doing different things. But some obvious choices that can be done with a substitute, like handwriting letters or professional communication through an email or some of those things that can be done indoors, that can be made as a choice board or a completion chart. The first time I ever saw that, and I know some of you are probably like, that's old hat, the completion charts or choice boards, and it had been around a long time, but the first time I saw it was visiting Holly Drake when she was still at Luther, and she had one for her shop, and it was incredible because basically you fill out the box, you check the box after you do the lowest level, and then by the end you make it to the end of that chart, you're doing high order skills in the shop. So it's just a progression chart. So that's a little different than a choice board, but I think you could do that with life skills too. Start out with low level, easy skills in that first tier, if you will, and then ramp it up as they go along, okay? Change an oil in a small gas engine or even one of the ag trucks if it needs it, right? Students, that'd be awesome if they would learn how to do that, right? So little things like that. So I like providing student choice whenever you can. And maybe you have a series of choices and you say, all right, today, here's what y'all have to pick from. And we're going to do it together as a group, but this is what we're going to talk about. So always require them to demonstrate. That's what we talk about, authentic assessment. All right. Keep an eye on all of them because it's easy for one to just say, I'm too intimidated by doing this skill. I don't want to. Just like if you were teaching, metals and welding, there's always going to be one or two that are standoff and kind of scared because the striking an arc and everything. You got to make them do it. And so that's why I like making them work in pairs because it's less intimidating. They can work with their partner in a lot of cases. And like I said, try to always think about where is this going? If it can relate to an SAE and lead to something like that, fantastic. If you can teach a skill that when you've trained a lot of CDE teams, whether it be electricity or otherwise, there's a lot of life skills that those things teach you. That's kind of in the name, career development event, right? And so if you can relate that to something that you've been teaching, maybe you're talking about meat science and you're doing a unit over meat science. Well, then you talk about cookery and how to actually cook a steak correctly, all right? So you don't have bozos eating well-done steaks with ketchup. Sorry if I offend you, but you don't want to do that, right? No, I'm kind of kidding there, but I mean, that would be an expensive lesson too. But there's things that you can talk about and try to relate to what you're already doing. And just all right, let's put this in everyday application. I mean, this is stuff that we should be doing anyways, right? Connect to careers, obviously, like I said, and then reward skill development, maybe with incentives. Like I said, if they make it all the way through the progression chart, there's something they're going to get for that, perhaps. I mean, these are ideas. Have I practiced all these? No, this is goals that I have too. So, and please interject if you hear anything that you're like, oh, what if you did this? Or, because I want this to be a two-way conversation as much as it can. Marty Jones talked yesterday about technology and how to do technology grants, and it was a very much a collaborative session. So don't think I'm teaching and you have to just listen. Please, if you've done something in class that you were just really fired up about, I would love to steal it from you. Okay? So yeah.
We did food safety, and we partnered with Vax, and we cooked a Thanksgiving turkey, and then we did it for the teachers. So we did a whole Thanksgiving meal, and they had to use proper food safety. That's
great. And obviously another bonus is when you can collaborate with another program. I mean, even if it's like mower usage, like how to use a lawnmower, and then we're going and helping out an athletic field. Now, most of them are probably like, we're not letting you touch our field, right? But I'm just thinking of like, so even just collaborating with the custodial staff and your maintenance crew. And then I guarantee you, because we've had that with our turf grass plot, Pat from our staff was so excited to talk to them about irrigation systems and how they work and all the different various types and how to maintain them. And so I guarantee you, if you went to somebody in your maintenance department, bus barn, whatever, and said, hey, do you mind teaching this lesson about just changing oil or regular vehicle maintenance? Maybe you're somebody that doesn't feel very strong in that. This is an opportunity for a great guest speaker situation, I think. And so I love that idea too. Anybody else?
We do a similar thing called a holiday lunch, and we have such military influence that there's several students that have been abroad. Seems like there's a lot that were born in Germany or spent time in Germany. I made them pick a dish that was specific to their family or their culture.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Probably the best story was 2 years ago. Young man, both of his parents were from Guam, and so I cook a ham and a turkey.
Yeah.
It's usually a leftover DJ's or something.
Sure. Yeah, no, traditional is good.
We cook a ham and a turkey, and they have to bring a side and a dessert. And he brought a side dish and a dessert that was specific to the island that I can promise you nobody in that classroom would have ever eaten otherwise.
Man, and broadening horizons, that's cool.
The idea of collaborating with another group and doing it.
Mm-hmm. One I've wanted to do, and I want to hear, because I know some other hands, one I've wanted to do is collaborate. It's Indian Student Association, but that's referring to our Native American student group. And I've wanted to partner with them, something cultural, whether it be food related, agriculture wise. We talk about permaculture and the Three Sisters planning system. I've tried to do that sometimes and just teach them about that and have us set up some that's not necessarily related, but you could say life skills, growing your own food in a small location. Obviously that relates to that. Now here's my example, and it is really rough, of a kind of a completion chart, something, and it needs a lot of work. I just wanted you to be able to see, in case you haven't seen something like that. Like tier 1, easy stuff, tie necktie, jump start a battery, okay? Check the oil in a vehicle, not even changing, just checking the oil. Effectively drive a nail in the board with a claw hammer, okay? It sounds so simple, and give 8th graders this opportunity. It is not, I promise you. They're gonna bend, because you get those little thin brads or whatever, and they're gonna bend it over. It's a lot of fun just to watch them screw up, because you kind of need to let them fail so that they learn, and then they really wanna get it right, okay? I'm telling you, I've seen some bad birdhouses the past several years. It's always fun, okay? Identify appropriate dress. Obviously, when we're teaching official dress, I think you should also be teaching about business casual versus business professional, even if it's not in FFA world. Like a student ought to know, well, what do I need to do for an interview, right? And you could just talk as the day is long if you're talking about professionalism for career skills, how to fill out a resume, not the one that's only through the AET system. I'm not dogging on them, but they need to know, what does a good functional resume look like? Formatted, not with all the dumb, wingdings and bad typeface, right? And so common courtesy is one that seems so broad, so you need to work that out. But we talk about it, and I promise you, now in this day and age, and it's so easy to sound like a kind of, somebody that's old or whatever else, but I'm just saying, like, students knowing how to stand up, look you in the eye, and shake a hand and say thank you and be respectful, and like, you can make your own list of that, but that is something you absolutely should be teaching to middle school students in ag education. I just think that hits at the heart of what we're about. We talk about leadership and leaders, and I think news literacy, source evaluation. I teach it hard in ag comm, because now more than ever, people need to know how to interpret the news and really understand what's driving certain sources of news, the spectrum of one side or the other, what is slant, what is all of these kind of things, so that they just don't go off of some dumb Facebook post that they saw and say, well, yeah, there's going to be, aliens next week coming to Edmond. I don't know. So like, I don't know. It's just like, you got to do those kind of things. And then I talked about like, these are not a whole lot tougher if you look at it, but I think, we often forget to teach legal land descriptions. I know that's in part of the curriculum of some of the things that we do ag mechanics wise and some of that kind of stuff, but that's a life skill, I think. Plant propagation, obviously, you can go as far as you need to on that, whether it's all the different various ways, asexually or sexually, to propagate a plant and then keep it alive. House plant projects are so easy to do. You can repropagate that. That's how I start kids with an SAE, because they don't do anything else. They'll refuse it. And I know, that's not a really robust SAE, but neither is not doing anything, right? And so it's something that they have to keep track of, and oh, this one, it had a new leaf or something like that, and it's something they can track. Personal budget, financial literacy, I need a lesson on that, but that's something I think needs to be taught. So these are ideas, and I've got more as we go along, but anything else come to mind now that you've seen this, or a better way to maybe approach a chart or a choice board? I'm just talking about how this would work, not just the skills. Okay.
Many years ago, my teaching partner did like that dinner table setup, and he had somebody that ran a catering company come in.
Oh, that's cool.
Like a higher end catering company, and then she went over all the like dinner etiquette.
Mm-hmm.
We have some kids that aren't freaking cavemen.
Yeah, and you learn that every time you take them on a trip. It's like, have you never been outside the house? So we get to practice that all the time with them, but let's formally teach it in class too. Why not? Absolutely. That's cool. Jordan?
I've seen one of these presented more like a bingo kind of chart.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that would be more fun presentation of it too. This is pretty boring.
One of these, you're going to have to do something like this.
Yeah, make it more engaging.
You can call it blackout or something.
That's
You can
good.
do it that way.
I like that. Yeah, bingo card this instead of just a boring checklist, right? So good idea. Now, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to you earlier.
Oh, you're okay. A skill that I started teaching, I just did it with my AgCom class this last year, but I want to do it in all my classes, is digital citizenship. There is an online curriculum somewhere, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but basically walking students through what is a digital footprint. What does that mean? Just because you post something and you delete it doesn't mean that it's gone.
Yeah.
All of those things, and that is a really good online curriculum. So if you guys are interested in that.
I like your term for that, because I've said like social media etiquette in the past and not really known a better term. But digital citizenship is, that's going to bring up and hit up more lessons that are more relevant to that. So I'm writing that down. Anything else?
Let me try to find it and I'll try to get it.
Well, and what I'll tell y'all, when I share this, I'm going to change the settings. Right now it's view only after you scan the QR code, so that you don't change too much. But I'll probably try to set up like just a collaborative Google Doc, okay, where you can drop links, drop listed ideas, write something, whatever. And that way, everybody in this room and anybody else you want to add to it can add to that Google Doc. So maybe I'll just share that. So don't try to jack up anything else, or at least make a copy of it and then do it however you want to, because you can lose stuff that way. But I will make one kind of hopefully shared collaborative Google Doc so that we can continually add ideas, pictures, whatever you can think of, because that's what always I think will be beneficial to us. So.
commonsense.org.
Oh yeah, nice.
Common sense education.
See, and that already makes me want to go to that website, because I guarantee you we're going to glean a lot of ideas off of that.
Really good lessons. They put them together really well.
Awesome. So getting a little further along, it's like I've witnessed greater student engagement with this. Student, you love when you hear it's like, I've never done this before. Well, that's the whole point, introducing them to a new thing, and that's awesome. How did I do? They really are. That's what I talk about. Authentic said they'll come up to you and show it, just like you love it when you're in the shop or anywhere else. You want them coming to you to get that feedback, just like we always love feedback and know coaching. We're coaching kids. That's what it's about. Improved attitudes to just everyday lessons, right? You love that too when you're flipping the classroom and people come in and they're excited because they know what they're about to anticipate. So if you're doing that more than just that, make Fridays or whatever really fun, So great answers to the questions. What did they teach you in school? It's pretty cool when a parent can be like, what did they teach you today? And every student usually is like, nothing, right? Well, we actually did this. And they're like, dang, all right, cool, and so, and I have had good feedback from parents in this too, and so that's really good. So it also just improve my mood and my excitement for what I was teaching, because I know it's relevant and important. I, as an adult, know that you need to know these kind of things. And I haven't jumped off and taught them about like the importance of, you know, how to file your taxes or anything really that hard or anything like that. But I mean, I think that as you get older, you can apply this to high school age students and make it relevant to whatever the curriculum is, and always be thinking about what is a life skill, even if it's in horticulture. I mean, curb appeal improves the value of a home. So let's talk about like what that can do, and even do a little bit of math applications to that, and kind of look around and see what could, you know, because I guarantee you that information's out there. And so there's just some things that I think hopefully you realize is valuable about it. Now, I've moved this kind of towards the end, some things like just what I've learned, things that I'd like to also do, but it takes a lot of time to front load a little bit of work and make this organized, and I'm not good at that. And so being consistent, that's really important too. When you try to establish a routine, and I'm speaking from experience, it's hard to follow through with that whenever you get into shows and fair season and busy with any other practices or after school things, whatever life hits. And so this is not meant to be harder. It's actually meant to be, if we'll do the work now, have a really good thought and plan of, here's all the things I'm going to do. I've got 16 really good lessons that'll get me through this first semester, and maybe I'll just plug them in on a day where I really need them. Okay, that's I try to allow for some flexibility, but if you can be consistent and do it on a Friday or whatever, I think that's cool. I think it's what I've always, you know, tried to strive for. It's not always worked out the way. And then again, this is something I think, again, we did something similar to this, except it wasn't just for 8th graders, but we have a green hand retreat, and we've allowed 8th graders to participate in that as well. And we were teaching some of these skills in class, and so we wanted it to culminate into our leadership kind of activity that we have that's in the fall to kind of acclimate these students. The theme was, you know, how to be an adult or survivor, like life, surviving life, something like that. I can't remember. This was a couple years ago, and I wish I had more pictures updated from what we did. But they were going through a marathon of different things, and you were on a small group team, and each team member had to decide, which skill are you going to do? Because here's the 8 things that we've, as a team, got to go, and each one of us is going to do something different. So one would be, you know, actually having to change a flat, right? And the next one would be, you know, I mean, we did, I can't even remember all the skills that we had. One was literally inside, and it was setting up a dinner table with paper plates and plastic, but it was according to a chart that's, here's what a formal dining looks like. So you had the extra forks and all that kind of stuff. And and it was all based on how much time. It was just like a relay race, basically. And so you do a life skills kind of marathon, and we did all those kind of things. And the officers were the ones that kind of scored it, officiated it. And it was really pretty fun. We've done a different theme from one year to the next for our Green Hand Retreat in the fall. And one was similar, but it was all just like farmhand Olympics. But still, it was like skills that you would need to know working with livestock or otherwise. And so it's all kind of followed that, but it's trying to be pragmatic as much as we can and not just games for the sake of games, which you need to have that too, and those are meant to be fun. But we hope as much as we can, we try to put something that is useful, practical to whatever it is that they do. So that's something that I want to build and actually be something that can be even also really sought after, excited about. And it could be more than just an 8th grade thing, but I think it could even be in class. Like, you know, semester test is going to be a big marathon where we're going to all perform our skills. It's going to take a week to do it, but like that's your finals week, something like that. I mean, I just think that would be kind of a fun way to authentically assess them, as opposed to, are we going to have a final in this semester? Like, yeah, it's going to be a comprehensive multiple choice exam, 100 questions, good luck. Versus doing that, I'm just like, no, this would be like way more fun for all of them. And I mean, it's a lot of work. I'm not trying to say that wouldn't be. That's why it hasn't always happened for me, but I just think it would be kind of cool. Now, listing some things and resources I want to share, and I know we've still got quite a bit of time. This is a short list, okay? And again, some of these you're going to look at and like, no way, I wouldn't do that. Fine, all right? You can make your list, right? But I just think about some of the ones that have been really good. You can see there's definitely some ag related ones, and then some they're like, this has nothing to do with that. But shoe shining, professional dress, right? Who knows how to do that? I don't, you know, so I haven't taught it yet, but it's on my list. Ironing a shirt, you're like, what does that have to do with anything? But I'm telling you, professionalism and saving money on cleaners, right? I've not taken anything to the cleaners in a long time. Well, suits, okay, I guess I have done that, but I mean, I'm not a starch jeans guy because I don't want to spend the money, right? But if you can teach them some things at home, it's kind of good, you know? And so outdoor survival stuff, there's a million different things out there for that. So if it's how to start a fire without matches or a lighter, that's kind of hard, but it is kind of fun, and they do get excited about that. Any number of things. How to fold the American flag, proper display. That's an easy lesson, but that's important. And even just, you know, what are you supposed to do whenever we, you know, take the flag down at night? Why do we put it up? How do we post the colors? I think that's, you know, just citizenship lessons are obviously a cool place to go. Even just fixing things like sewing a button or patching tear on clothing, whatever the case may be. That's a short list. I've got a longer list, and it's also there. So I'm going to pull it up, and then I'll put this back up so that you can scan this later, okay? But I'll give you a second as you scan. That should hopefully work to give you access to that folder that I'm about to pull up, okay? And if it doesn't work, just let me know. And you should know that my email is mason.jones@edmondschools.net. You can find it also on the Ag Ed website under the directory and all that. And if you want my phone number, I'll give it to you later. If you need anything, I will tell you this. One of the initial things that I was going to talk about at this conference was greenhouse management. That's been done before, and that's kind of why I said, well, let me try and do something that's maybe more classroom related, looking at the list. But if you have any greenhouse questions, and I know Jess here is really well versed in that, and I'm sure others in the room are too. But anything like that is stuff I like, and I just would love to visit about greenhouses if that's what you want to do, because I like doing that too. But as I pull up the Google Drive link, let's see if this will work. Hold on. I've got a few lesson plans that I made that are not anything special, but this is what it should have hopefully got you to, was Adult 101. Now I'm going to go ahead and since we said we were going to do it, I'm going to make this Google Drive, and I'll change the settings to where you should be able to type on that, but shared ideas, something, I'll read them. Sure, why not? Okay. But in here, the lesson plan subfolder has like several different things, but a lot of this, as you really look, this is where I've worked a lot out of. Because if you scroll down, it's PDFs of saved things. Now, the art of manliness, I gotta just say this, there's these life skills that men are supposed to know. I never teach it that way, okay? Obviously, you know, that's too much of a stigma, but like, it's adult, and just replace that with adult things, because I think anybody needs to know. Like, shake hands, how to give a strong handshake. From the Art of Manliness was the website. I'm like, okay, I'll use that, but I'm not going to hand out a handout that says the Art of Manliness to kids necessarily. I just think that that's dumb. But, you know, that's kind of old school thing. But you can see there's a lot of things as we talk about that. Public speaking even. I think an idea or an approach to getting them to start thinking about public speaking, along with what we already have, opening ceremonies and otherwise, extemporaneously speaking off the cuff is a skill that's totally different than what we do in FFA world. And so we do like a Toastmasters 2-minute toast, okay? Give them a prompt and say, all right, you've got to give me a 2-minute kind of, and you know, usually it lasts 30 seconds and you're happy that they even do it that long. But we even did like, you know, paper cups or whatever. It's like cheers, but like that was one of those things that we did at the meal etiquette thing. But then we also made them stand up and give like a nice toast sort of thing. It's like, because some of you are going to be, you know, maids of honor or best men or whatever at a wedding, and that was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I've done a lot of FFA speech stuff and all that when you're prepared, but I've never been more nervous than when I had to give the best man speech at my brother's wedding, right? And so, I don't know, that's getting a little out of left field, but it's kind of fun. So you can see this is quite a bit of information, and as you go here, you can say, it's like, well, this is kind of cool. It's not. Even the trailer backing thing. Well, I don't want them to hop in one of our ag trucks with a gooseneck, but we have a lawnmower, a rider, and it's also got a little single axle trailer that we haul our reel mower on, so I can take the reel mower off of that, and learning how to back that, because you can jackknife that like that, obviously, a little single axle thing, but that is something that we haven't even got to that. That was a goal of mine this year, was to get to that. Teaching first lawnmower safety, operational use of a rider mower, things like that, how to maintain it, change the oil, and then get to operating it, and then actually backing a trailer, which is taking it to, because we had cones we'd set up, and you know, and of course teaching tractor driving. If you've not got the means to do that, that's something that I understand. But if you have the means, why not teach that? Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, we've got a chapter, and I've got Edmond students that are like dying to try and write it, and I haven't ever actually reached that point where I've done it, but why not? I mean, with safety and teaching that as a unit and then letting them actually do it. I mean, of course, you need to make sure you go through the right avenues and have permission forms, whatever it is that you think you need to do, but that's something I think would be kind of cool. All right, so now that I've talked about this and I've shared some resources, hopefully that alone is something you find somewhat useful, at least maybe to help you. You might be like, I don't like this method, but I know this gives me an idea for how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it the right way. At least I hope that you got that out of this, but I'd love to continue to hear or collaborate with any other things that you would add. If you've not seen this on the list. Now, another thing that I've made as I go back to lesson plans, there's some things like even just how to read a tape measure and a ruler, and I've done like a blank one where they had to label that. So that's what I teach middle school students, and they need to label it down to the 16th of an inch and all that. Let's see what else. Dinner table etiquette lesson plan I just created not that long ago, and you talk about why is that important. Think, pair, share it. You can have this as a guide for a basic one, and then a formal one, and then give them all the things that you need. Maybe just have one full set of actual real dishes. Bring them in. That'd be easy, So there's just some things. Getting back to the first thing, this chart of activities, that's the one that I showed you a little bit, needs a lot of work, but as you keep scrolling, this was a longer list as I talk about. If you're still looking for ideas, and I kind of broke them into categories, okay? And so let's get it to where you can kind of see most of them. Safe food handling, cookery, etc. Camping, outdoor and shop tools. So even just like things that you're going to keep in your garage or your shop, how to manage that, and what should you have? What do you, if you have a toolbox at your house, what needs to be in it? The most essential things. And tool ID, you're going to be teaching that more than likely. So let's talk about what are the essential things. Are you ever really going to need this? Maybe, maybe not. What is its uses and applications, okay? Household skills, like I said, there's a bunch of that. I mean, and think about 21st century skills like digital citizenship and things of that nature. What are things that maybe not just forgotten skills, but things that are new that we haven't even addressed yet, like that. And I like digital citizenship. Career skills, as I said, long list of this is employment skills. That's an LDE. We have that, and Edmond students participate in it. And so you learn a lot of that kind of stuff, but so many students, they know all this kind of stuff. They don't know how to actually use Microsoft Office suite in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think that's going away completely. Now, it may be in the form of Google, which is fine too, but they're not getting that in other classes, evidently, because I'll tell them to add a hanging indent for a bibliography page, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, so there's a great teachable moment right there, And so personal finance, a lot of those kind of things. I may have multiple pages there. So again, interrupt me if you've got any other ones that need to be added here. Yeah, I've got quite a bit here. So.
I can't read from that far.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, that's okay. Do you have writing an email and adding attachments?
I put professional electronic communication, and that would have been a part of it. So they understand what does CC mean versus reply and reply all, so that you don't get yourself in trouble replying all, that kind of stuff. So yes, we do talk about that, and that's a great idea. It's just email basics, because our students during COVID, whenever everything was virtual, I got so many emails that said, hey, I finished this, grade it. I was like, are you kidding me? So a lot of butt chewing actually occurred because they didn't know how to send a nice email, a professional email, much less, CC whoever or the other actual basic other aspects of emailing. Yeah, Chase.
So I did this with my 7th graders because I got to the point I wasn't wanting to.
Well, if we're moving toward possibly having 7th grade, obviously that's another reason why I think this is relevant.
If you work at Shawnee, it's no, you have no choice.
Right.
When we did personal finance, because you can deposit a check, like give me a picture of it now, they didn't even know how to read a check. They didn't know what this number in the corner meant. They didn't know who these people that gave it to were.
And I used to talk about how to fill out a ledger. I've gone away from that because I don't do it anymore, but I do think how to write a check is obviously still important and relevant, and then even showing them that you can deposit it that way.
Read the freaking thing. Like,
Yeah.
Why is this number here, but then you wrote it in words here? Why did I
Yeah.
do both of them? Or you have to sign it on the back in order for the stupid thing to get deposited.
Yeah,
Or
that's good.
what the difference between your actual balance and your available balance in your bank account means.
Right, yeah, and the pending and all that. That's great. And it's things that we think are boring and overlooked, they'll be like, and so that's good. If we're overlooking it, probably means it needs to be taught because we aren't thinking about teaching it probably. What else? Somebody? Yeah, Tanya?
I know thank you notes you already mentioned, but I will say, one of the best things I ever did was put thank you notes the day after state convention. The State Department provides that list of thank you notes. There's a whole bunch of general ones.
Well, and what else are you wanting to do that day? You want to try and reinvent the wheel and just start a whole new lesson? No, that's absolutely what should be happening, right?
Every kid who went to convention does one off their list because there's a general support sponsor. And then I've made for the other kids a list at the end of that for my chapter and their supporters. Every kid does 5 thank you notes that day.
That's invaluable. And I don't, yeah.
That's all I can mentally do.
Sure. That's a tremendous idea. We've done it, and then some years we haven't because we just, so admittedly, like that has to be something we do and it should be the expectation, but everybody loves getting a thank you note handwritten. I don't care if it was something big or small. I like getting them and reading them. So reciprocate that. That's really important and key. And that way they can understand. Maybe it's like, well, I kind of know how, but like, no, you need to understand the importance of why we do this. Yeah.
I will say, when I was in high school, my FFA chapter, we did a whole like chapter-wide meeting on thank you notes, letter writing, how to address an envelope, and that was probably one of the best meetings we ever did.
I think it's great. And I'm not saying this all has to just be a daily lesson. Put it into something that can be after school as a group and make it fun that way. It kind of relates to that culmination of a marathon, if you will. But it could be just, we're going to have a theme meeting, and the meeting's not just we're going to eat pizza. We're actually going to have something where you're going to learn. Like this FFA meeting is not, we always, when we're planning POA stuff this year, we're thinking about what's a fun thing we can do for an FFA meeting. It's like, oh, where we're going to go, what's activity to fill the time. Why don't we just actually do something that is worthwhile? Okay, and it's not even always just a community service, but it could be that, and it can also be a service and learning project. And so, yeah, we could talk this day as long, and I hope we, continue this conversation later, even after this session's over. If you got ideas, next time I see you, you're thinking, hey, I did this, I taught this. I want to hear about it. I'm serious. I think it'd be great. I know we've got about 8 minutes, so we can still keep talking.
Something about taking a group of kids to sit down and eat at a meal. How do you actually act? That drives me nuts because every year you go somewhere, and one day could be a group where I go at one when I was at Woodward, and you can talk about that at home, talk about it at school, but put it in a restaurant setting. It'd be nice to have something there. This is what's acceptable. If it's just tipping a waiter, or you don't take your straw and shoot it across the table. I mean, stuff that just
Tipping etiquette, yeah. Absolutely, because I can't tell you how many times I felt bad because you walk back over the table and you had, and obviously filling, the orders for a bunch of high school kids is not fun as a waiter anyway. And then if they get stiffed on the tip, that's even worse. And so you've got to that's absolutely a good one. Just how to behave in public and just how to carry yourself. Because that's what's so cool about us as ag teachers. In many cases, the first time we get to see a student, whether it be state convention or otherwise, get out of the house and actually have to act right. And we've been calling them COVID kids because my middle school students and Ag 1 students this past year, and I'm sure you can relate, you probably noticed relative to years past where I've had middle school students, these kids are absolutely knotheads. I had a conduct team and I couldn't let them out of my sight because they were just, I couldn't hardly try, and that was my conduct team, It was just like, Mr. Taylor knows, it's just unreal how they didn't know how to act. I mean, and when we walk in, and I probably let this slide too much, but taking the ball cap off, earphones out of your ears, when you're ordering food and you got that and you're, let me get no, come on, let's go. That kind of, just be respectful, that kind of deal. So, anything else? I know this is hard to read, so look for it on your own time, and you're probably going to find other things that are going to jump to mind. But I hope that this is something that, again, not all of these have a lesson plan, and so you can jump in there and teach that. Or a quick Google find is really what I've done a lot of times. Just like, I need a step-by-step list is really all I need to teach it because I understand how to apply a simulation demonstration method. And so after that, it's let's roll, let's go. So.
With my 8th graders this year, because we're in the middle school on the complete opposite side of the city from the high school where the shop is, so I can tell them all day long, this is what you're going to see in the shop and blah, 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 blah. This is how you identify this problem, but until they actually see it, they're not going to know what I'm talking about. So I did kind of like an escape room style.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not telling you all to do this, and it honestly drove me crazy after if you you've ever seen my classroom or my desk, I personally destroyed my classroom on purpose. And like I put
Oh, wow.
a burning fire on the projector screen, and I had drawers pulled out and the water running and lights.
So they had to
and
like
extension cords.
fix it.
And they had 20 seconds to walk in with a note card and stand in the middle of the room and do one 360 spin and identify as many things wrong.
Ah.
And then come back out. Then they went as a team, and I had this like little 4-foot square of tile right at the front of the door. And they stood there with their team partner and just looked in the room to see if they could figure out any more stuff.
Wow.
And it's like, it's not, you can teach it with mechanic safety, but it's like, learn how to be conscious in your environment and know what's going on around you, like at all times, going back to sitting at a dinner table or being in public. Like
Yeah.
things you would do at home or not, you should probably do with a group of young professionals.
Right. Well, and I like the problem solving aspect of it too, because when we talk about a strategy we need to try and do is always trying to put in more problem solving, fix this. What do you see that's wrong with this picture? Because that's what agriculture is. When you're farming, you're problem solving. I mean, we're talking production, agriculture, otherwise. A lot of it, something's going to break down, we've got to fix it. Something's going to go wrong, we've got to diagnose the issue. So as much as you can do that with these skills is truly, absolutely knocks it out of the park. I like that a lot. What else?
I have a pretty extensive landscaping unit just because that's something they're all going to use at their house. Is landscape, I mean, they can go home and do that. But I think it'd be cool to teach pool maintenance and how to balance water. Because some of them are going to have pools sometime in their life, and that's something you don't want to pay somebody for.
Well, and even pond management, if you're in a more rural area, like I'm always was fascinated when I first learned, how did we construct and build the dirt work for a pond with the right kind of soil texture? So we were teaching soils, that's relevant. It's just even management of that. Don't let brush get to the point where it's growing all along it, keep in a nice place. Because I grew up in Calera, Oklahoma, and some folks aren't as concerned with aesthetics about their home place, and landscaping and all that. It's just not a big deal. You got grass growing through the car parked in the front yard kind of deal. And so it's like, I don't know how that walks out as a full lesson, but landscaping in general, you can talk about like, don't be this person, right? And so that's good. I like that. What else? Okay, so that is really the extent of what I have. And as we talk about this, I hope that these resources generate more ideas for you and give you maybe some direction with where to go with middle school curriculum. And that's something I still, as I've entering into 10 years of teaching, I've never nailed and have got to figure out how to do a better job of kind of just differentiating and making the 8th grade Ag Explorations curriculum its own unique year so that when they go into my Ag 1 class the next year, they're not like, we already did this. Because they do, and it does happen. And so I'm trying to avoid that. It's sometimes hard to do, it really is, but I'm trying to make that unique because I like to focus Ag 1 at the beginning all about FFA, so I don't go into too much of that with middle school students. I don't think that they're super excited about learning about all the deep history of FFA just yet. But when they get that buy-in after that first year, and they've gone to some things like alumni camp and state convention, and they know a little bit about what FFA is, then they are going to hopefully be interested in learning about what did this start from? What is this whole thing? Future Farmers of America, what is that? Because it doesn't matter whether you're in a small rural town, there's so many non-farm kids that you're going to be teaching these days. And so we know that. And so don't assume that they're going to know it all if you're at a very traditional ag program, if you will. So that's good. That's all I have. I appreciate the comments and everything. And again, let the conversation continue. And I also want to say I'm grateful to the folks like Emily and all them at OSU for doing this still. I hope we can keep doing this as we go along. And teachers, you guys, you've now been, so be ready to start presenting more. You all have good things that you do. The whole point of this is, what's the thing that you're most excited about that you do in your profession? And it could be FFA circle or CDEs, and could be the SAE thing. How do you manage that really well? That's what you should be talking about then. Things that you're most excited about, and don't just limit it to, because we know we can always fill a room if we're like open it up and talk about how to train a CDE team, all right? I remember last year CL McGill had people, packed to the gills because all he did was talk about how he trains kids, and it was really good. But I want to always learn about like, what are you doing every day that makes life easier? I mean, life hacks as an ag teacher, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm always looking for is how do we do, because we know we're going to be strapped and we're going to be busy. So how can we make that manageable and easier and organized and all those kind of things. So just that's my thoughts on it anyway. So all right, thank y'all.